Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to IFFGD's Research Award Winner Series titled Where Are They Now? This program was designed not only to acknowledge this year as being IFFGD's 30th anniversary, but to also give us a chance to reconnect with some of our past Research Award winners. So today we have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Ashley Blackshaw, who was our 2013 IFFGD Research Award winner for Senior Investigator in Basic Science. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Blackshaw.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're currently located, and also your current career focus?
Sure. I'm now in the UK. I've spent most of my career in Australia, and before that, I was in the UK before. So I've kind of hopped over there and back again in the course of 20 years. And I've been a basic scientist all that time, but throughout the whole of my career, I've been focused on the gut-brain axis, so since the 80s. So that sort of hasn't really changed much at all. And so it keeps me hopefully relevant to the people that you're reaching out to here. But
Yes, sure.
it was a huge honor to get the award in 2013. It's gone so fast since then. That was great because being a basic scientist, you do find yourself often removed from what's going on in the clinic, and obviously it's happening with patients, what they
Mm.
think, that sort of thing. So I found that a huge boost to my career. It made me think a lot more about where things end up. So I think it helped change my focus a little bit. And after that, so I worked in London at the time of the award.
Mhm.
And after that, I changed the focus of my group towards work on humans as relevant directly to humans. And we had a long program of research that was aimed to do just that. It was to understand pain and discomfort from the bowel in humans. So yeah, it's been 8 years now. I changed focus again most recently, but we can go into that a little bit later if you like. But certainly my main career focus being on how information gets from the gut to the brain. That's always been my passion, if you like.
Yeah, and basic science is really just about gaining a better understanding about everything and how it kind of works. So, just you talking about the brain gut axis and things like that, that is definitely relevant right now and present in the patient community. And I feel like that's a hot topic for sure, just the brain gut axis and how it relates to any GI disorder. So, that's really exciting. And I know you talked about your career focus has kind of changed. So, can you just talk to us a little bit maybe about some of your current research topics?
Sure. As I said, the work that I was doing in London, which is obviously in the south of England, that was working very much on pain. And we did some work quite closely with the pharmaceutical industry to develop a new drug. Some of your patients may be taking that right now, which is linaclotide. So
Mm.
we were involved in the development of that, both as academics within the University of London and also with the pharmaceutical industry. Um, the um, the other sort of work that we were doing around that time was how nutrients were sensed by the gastrointestinal tract and how different nutrients, affect perception of meals and that sort of thing. So that's kind of shifted slightly recently to my focus on the gut microbiota. So basically, all the bugs that live inside your intestines, we are looking at exactly how they influence the brain on a short term and on a long term basis. And that's a really exciting area, I think. And it's one of those things, there's a huge amount to learn still. So it's really opened things right out. And that's been the reason for my move to the Quadram Institute, which is in Norwich, which is a little bit north of London. So just to give you an idea whereabouts things are on the map. So it's not of a great big distance geographically, but certainly science-wise, it's been a major jump for me.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool just to hear that it's an international thing, that this is an international focus, and that we have doctors all over the world really focused on trying to figure out how these GI disorders affect the patient population. So, in part of that, can you briefly explain to us what you hope to gain a better understanding about in some of the research that you're doing, and how this might help us better understand GI disorders in adult and children population?
In terms of the ultimate aim, the real sort of feeling inside, as it were, that you want to do in your work is, I think, create something really new, to create something that is going to revolutionize things. And I don't think many of us achieve that, but obviously we all try. And my sort of area of interest from that point of view is trying new approaches to therapy, and not just in the GI tract, but in a number of diseases. And that's why I'm working on the gut microbiome, because we believe that these bacteria in the gut hold the key to delivering treatments, perhaps, or at least they can be used to decrease symptoms, um, maybe not by the traditional ways of manipulating the microbiota, but with new ways of doing that. I think we might be amazed what we're capable of achieving.
Yeah, so would you say basically just understanding how the bacteria functions and how can we tailor different treatment options for patients? Is that what you're getting at?
That's another very important point, is we're all different, and certainly our gut microbiota is all different. No individual has the same populations within their bowel, and that can explain probably quite a lot. We don't understand how your population of gut microbes influences everything. The more we understand about that, then the more you'll be able to maybe more accurately categorize patients, and say, well, yeah, this kind of treatment is going to be more appropriate for these than the others, and again specialize on treatments for subgroups of patients. And I think with functional GI disease, that's maybe a little bit of a problem at the moment. So I think the very broad-minded, I think, approach that people have to gut microbiota, because you have to, there are thousands of species of them in there. You can't help it. So you've got to be broad-minded, and I think that's the key, is looking very broadly at what might be beneficial in there.
Yeah, for sure. Thinking outside of the box. So, in part of this conversation here, we know that all research is very significant in understanding how GI disorders affect the patient population. But what would you say might be one of your most successful research studies and why?
Um, yeah, I think the study that I would say has made the biggest difference, it has been the one that we did on linaclotide. And the important feature of that study was we managed to marry the basic science of how sensory nerves function with the symptoms that patients actually perceive. And we actually went on beyond that particular study to look at how that actually happens within the human bowel. So we were able to take segments of human bowel once they've been removed from surgery. So this is basically tissue that normally goes to waste. We can investigate within that tissue exactly how sensory nerve activity is generated and how that may cause pain in humans. And we were able to show that the principle of linaclotide, the peptide, was able to reduce activity in those pain sensing nerves within the human bowel. And that formed the basis of a paper in gastroenterology, actually around the time of my award, almost the same month, I think. So it's a nice coincidence. But I think that within that study, we also looked at a clinical trial, quite in quite a focused way, and found that the way in which it influenced the isolated tissue in the organ bath in the laboratory was really exactly the same way as it influenced the patient, so we can understand the mechanism why. And I think that's my favourite one because it was a possibility to refine that
Yeah.
in the future. So we know how we can directly refine things and take things directly from the bench to the bedside
Yeah.
with very little in between. That's the idea.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Honestly, I think that that's something that has definitely um, helped affect the patient population, giving just an option out there, the research that has definitely touched many people. So that is very exciting for sure. And you talked about how you felt like maybe that study or any other ones may have influenced you getting the IFFGD Research Award in 2013. But what other acknowledgments might have you received outside of just the IFFGD Award?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. The work for that paper was being done and being communicated around the time I was nominated. So I do think it may have been that did the trick. So hopefully other people agree with me that was the favourite one. Since then, when I moved to the UK, I got a Marie Curie award, which is from the European Union, and that was a huge honor. I mean, just the name Marie Curie means a lot to many people in terms of science and medicine. So that was very helpful to get me started
Mhm.
in my research in the UK as well. Um, and that was it really. But the main reward that I've had is knowing that some of the stuff that I've done in my research has made it through to the clinic, and hopefully the stuff I'm working on now is engaging with the same sort of thing. That maybe a different group of patients in the end, but nonetheless people who need treatment that's really, areas where we're really struggling at the moment. I think functional GI disorders is one of those and hasn't really improved in terms of drugs that have been available for it very much in the last few years. There've been one or two exceptions for that, so that's good news. But on the whole, I think we're still way behind. So it would be nice to see some progress across the board in terms of new drugs, new approaches to therapy, and really nice basic science like we're doing hopefully here. We want to do the best stuff we can, and lots of other people are doing great basic science at the moment. So it's an exciting time
Mhm.
from that point of view.
Yeah, definitely an exciting time. I feel like there's so many things and so many discoveries that have come about here recently, and that is what like you said, very exciting because it's helping us gain a better understanding of how these GI disorders really, really, truly affect the patient population. And yet, there's so much to come as well. So, what exactly do you enjoy about being a researcher, and why?
I think the thing that really makes me happy about being a researcher is the undiscovered.
Mm,
That it's a bit like being one of the early geographical explorers, maybe, when you're sort of going around the world and seeing things that no one has ever done before. That's very much what it feels like. Not all the time. It takes a lot of hard work in between, but when those little nuggets of new information come through, obviously you've got to recognize that, but the feeling that you get from that is absolutely wonderful, especially if it becomes immediately obvious that there's some translation that you can make from that. It can actually do some good rather than just being interesting. It needs to be effective. So yeah, that's the main thing for me is the unknown. It's I think what drives every scientist.
yeah, and it's kind of what you said just right before this question of how the real reward is you seeing the things that you're researching really helping the patient population. And I think that that definitely is something to that's very gratifying, really, to understand that the things that you are doing and the hard work, because obviously research takes years and years and years to come up with something that can be published. So just knowing that all of the hard work that you are doing is definitely translating into helping the patient population and those who are suffering from GI disorders. So we know that there are plenty of gap needs in the research community, but what do you see as being some of the gap needs in research for GI disorders, and how do you foresee maybe your lab fulfilling some of those needs?
Gaps are everywhere in medicine. I think it's very important to recognise those gaps, as you say, and in this particular field, I think the gap um, it's a bigger problem in this field than others, and that gap is proper categorization of patient groups, of being able to identify people who need specific approaches and using that. And functional GI disorders are a perfect example of some patients benefit from a psychological approach, and some patients will achieve nothing through that. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Doesn't mean one person's wrong or right. I think it's important to tailor approaches. Likewise, manipulating the gut microbiota, manipulating the diet benefits other patients. The low FODMAP diet, for example, has been quite successful in many areas. So I think it's important to know the patient group first, and then tailor the treatment to that. And I'm not talking just about existing treatments. I'm talking about any future treatment that comes along. When there are trials of those new treatments, it's really important to choose the patient groups properly, rather than try and be as broad and as inclusive as possible, because to a large extent that's not worked. But I don't think that's bad news. I think it's just a question of having more weapons to fight the fight. And I think my field of gut microbiota is one such. As I mentioned before, there are many pathways, very many interactions between bacteria and the host that you can take advantage of. And of course, with bacteria, they can be manipulated. We can change their phenotype very much like we have with domesticated animals. We can make bacteria friendly, and the more friendly bacteria we have in disorders like FGID, then the better off we are. And again, I think there will be a group of patients that benefit enormously from probiotic type therapy, but not probiotic necessarily as it stands. I think there may be some changes that are needed before probiotics are correctly targeted and work best. So yeah, that's my gap, is more categorization. And I think patients need that as well. They need to feel like an individual. They don't want to be put into one pigeonhole or another. I think it helps them to know more about the etiology of their disease. So
Yeah, very impactful statement there that you said. I mean, just going off of that, every patient is different, and how their symptoms affect them is very different as well. So I think that a lot of the research that you are doing will definitely have a significant impact on the patient community, especially this new research about the microbiota and how it affects patients, and how can we tailor treatments to best help the patient population. And that's so exciting. And we're so happy to hear of all of the phenomenal research that you have going on. And we're excited to see what's to come in the future for sure. So thank you so much for sharing your insight on this topic.
thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for tuning into IFFGD's Research Award Winner series titled Where Are They Now? Where we've had a great time with Dr. Blackshaw, who has really gave us a little bit of insight and shared his journey through research with us. So we just want to say thank you again.